number 10 spot, we have the giant centipede. Honestly, I think the title says it all. It is a giant centipede. Just saying, that makes me want to crawl under my covers and hide from the world. Let's be real. The idea that there's creepy centipedes out there in general makes me feel uncomfortable, let alone giant ones. No thanks. Hey, creator of the planet, could we just have done without this one? I don't know. Get back to me later. This new giant version was discovered near Japan and Taiwan in 2021 in the Ryukyu Islands. It was about 20 centimeters long and 2 centimeters thick. It apparently has a bit of an amphibious nature as it lives on land and in water. Yeah, I'm making no plans to ever go to that island. If you're enjoying this video so far, smash that subscribe button so you can know when we post a new video. In our number 9 spot, we have the mountain fur de lance. The mountain fur de lance is the newest addition to the viper family discovered in the jungle mountains in Zongo Valley in Bolivia. Honestly, the fact that in 2020 we discovered another viper snake makes me wonder what kind of terrifying creature we will discover next. These snakes have excellent camouflage and are usually found lying around the forest floor, often in piles of leaves. They have these heat sensors that help them sense their prey. They are extremely venomous, as you can imagine, so you probably are best to stay clear of Zongo Valley, or all rainforests for that matter. Just joking, just be careful. In our number 8 spot, we have the pig snout brittle sea star. Okay, as creepy as this new discovery is, the pig snout brittle sea star has actually been hiding deep in the ocean at 200 feet for a long time as a living fossil from the Jurassic period. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. It was discovered in 2015 in a barrel, and it was collected also in 2011 in Bank Durand in the South Pacific. Why the name though? Well, it was given this name because of its 8 long arms that look like many pig snouts snapped together. Just gross. Its underside apparently is filled with bristly, thorny teeth. So basically, it's a bunch of pig-like arms with creepy teeth on one side. Excuse me as I may go puke at the thought of this. In our number 7 spot, we have Eriovixia gryffindori. A new spider has been discovered, and all of us that would rather spiders did not roam the earth are not happy about it. But the only somewhat pleasurable thing about this spider is the fact that it was given a name based off of Harry Potter. Why does this make me like it and want to accept it? I don't know. The Eriovixia gryffindori was given an HP sounding name due to the fact that it looks like the Sorting Hat from the movie, and the people who discovered it are extremely cool, obviously. The spider has a very weird shaped body that arises from a very wide base and ends to a bent peak. The body is covered with tiny yellow and white hairs. I bet Ron Weasley would not be too thrilled to hear how a new spider has been discovered. God, I love him. Best HP character by far. Never mind, I take that back. Hermione's better. In our number 6 spot, we have the Potomatrigon Rex. No, not a T-Rex or a dinosaur, even though it would be pretty awesome if we discovered a dinosaur existing. On second thought, if the Jurassic Park movies have taught us anything, it's never a good idea to bring back dinos. This new species is also known as the Great River Stingray, and it is a freshwater stingray. It was discovered recently in 2016 from the middle and upper Rio Tocantins in Brazil. It is a dark brownish blackish color and has small yellow spots on it. It is quite large and can weigh up to 44 pounds. It has gained the title of King of Freshwater in this Brazilian river and cannot be found anywhere else in the world. Pretty cool. In our number 5 spot, we have the Scolopendra cataracta. Yep, that's a mouthful of a name. This newly discovered centipede species was found in Thailand and Vietnam. Honestly, creator, I ask you again, why another one? Could you not make another version of a dog for us to discover, or a cat, or basically anything that doesn't have more than 4 legs? Apparently this centipede was named cataracta because that is the name of the waterfall that it was found in. It's apparently 8 inches long and has 20 pairs of legs. Creepy. In our number 4 spot, we have the Fidel Drogon. Named after the dragons from Game of Thrones. I'm not joking. This and ant, yes, you heard me, ant, has some appropriate characteristics that would lead to it being given this name. Honestly, when I was a kid, I loved ants. I was constantly observing them because, well, I don't know why, I was weird, whatever. But anyways, adult me gets the creeps when I think of them. So the fact that there is an ant out there that has a strange resemblance to a dragon, nah, I'm out. Why is this real? This new ant species was discovered in Papua New Guinea. They have spiny barbs along their backs and shoulders that protect them against predators. Apparently they have muscles beneath the spiny barbs that are there to help the ants hold up their oversized heads. I honestly need this. My shoulders can barely hold up my head. Their heads are packed with muscles to help them lift heavy and large objects. I have no excuse because I just have a big head, so. In our number 3 spot, we have the Xenoturbella churro. Okay, we most likely don't have to be too concerned about this one, but it deserved an honorable mention for looking like a churro. Nom 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 nom. If you've never had a churro, it's a doughy pastry that is just delish. Would recommend. Anyways, of course this new species was given its name because it looks like a churro. It is a sea creature that was found in the eastern Pacific Ocean. It falls within a worm-like animal category, similar to a jellyfish, but it doesn't have tentacles and a few other jellyfish characteristics. It is a pinky purple color and apparently it is food for the mollusk. In our number 2 spot, we have the ringed Sicilian. Technically, this snake was discovered about 2 centuries ago, but only recently it was actually discovered that it has oral venomous glands, and so it basically feels like we're getting to know this creature for the very first time. We're getting newly acquainted, and forevermore we shall be way more cautious. This snake is black with rings around it, and honestly it looks like it's straight out of a futuristic post-apocalyptic world movie. When these snakes are born, fun fact, apparently they feast on their mother's outer layer of skin with 44 teeth. So basically they are vampire snakes. This is terrifying. Apparently then the mother takes a few days to regrow her outer layer of skin back. Nice. In our number 1 spot, we have the Gracilis radix. This is a new species of wild rodent that was discovered in a mountainous area in Indonesia. It's a rat. Its scientific name is the Sulawesi root rat. Yeah, gross. It is known to weigh up to about 40 grams, but like I said, it's a mountain rat, so it is found at an elevation of 1,600 meters. Apparently, it is one of 4 rats that have recently been discovered, and hopefully one of the last. Am I right? Who agrees?
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the pelican spider. Alright, nature is crazy. Many of us have likely heard of animals that have the ability to appear like other scarier animals or things in order to deter predators, but have you ever heard of spiders that kinda look like pelicans? Madagascar's pelican spiders have this sort of crazy illusion of a neck and a beak, and one of the newest discovered species just might be the most pelican-y of all. The researchers who discovered this new species published their findings in 2018, along with the information that this spider species is likely endemic to Madagascar, meaning it can't be found anywhere else in the world. In our number 9 spot today, we have the glass frog. This little frog, also known as Diane's bare-hearted glass frog, or even a Kermit frog, is a lime green little guy, but his surprise comes when you turn him over to look at his underside. This is when you'll realize that he is completely see-through, allowing us all a look at his internal organs. These guys make their home in the rainforest foliage of Costa Rica, and they were found by researchers at the Costa Rican Amphibian Research Center. They did appear similar to other kinds of glass frogs, which is why it took so long for them to be distinguished as a different species, but as it turns out, there is a 12% divergence from their nearest relative. Another really interesting thing about these frogs, that is also another reason why they went so long without being discovered, has to do with their call. Their call is said to sound much more similar to an insect rather than a typical frog. In our number 8 spot today, we have the transparent sea slug. This new species of sea slug is quite a captivating creature. They belong to the grouping called nudibranches, which are soft-bodied marine gastropod mollusks. These type of creatures are known to shed their shells after their larval stage, and they are best known for their incredibly bright and striking colors, although this new species is more transparent looking. These sea slugs were discovered and unveiled by the California Academy of Sciences back in 2014, and they were described from a specimen found found near Waterfall Bay in Malaysia, although they've also been found near the Philippines and Japan as well. These slugs are quite slow growing and they love to chow down on soft-bodied corals for a tasty meal. In our number 7 spot today we have the ray spider. This new species of ray spider was discovered just this year in 2022 and it is thought to be endemic to a certain region of Japan. These spiders are known for their conical webs that are quite distinct from other spider webs. The thing about ray spiders is that they aren't filter feeders at all. For someone who is terrified of spiders like I am, their way of hunting is a lot more frightening than I would like to imagine. These guys stretch their webs into a cone-like shape like I mentioned before, and then they hold on tightly while they wait for their unsuspecting prey to waltz on by. When it's time to strike, they either shake or they let their webs fly out in order to catch their delicious meal. While these spiders certainly are battle ready, the good news is that this new species is quite small, which means that we can all rest easy. In our number 6 spot today we have the new sea slug. Another new species of sea slug. These guys were first classified back in 2018 after they were found in the coral reefs of Indonesia. While kind of strange looking, these creatures are also pretty dazzling as they have either a bright beautiful purple color or they're white with orange spots. It took so long for them to be discovered because of their similarities to another species of sea slug, but after some DNA sequencing however, it was realized that these similarities are more of a mimic rather than a close relative. It is said that these sea slugs are quite adept at survival skills as they have a whole pile of strategies that they rely on. These include mimicry, camouflage, and cryptic patterns. In our number 5 spot today we have the living branch. Alright, looking at a picture of one of these guys, you'd think it's just a large stick, but instead it really is a new species of very, very large stick bugs. These guys were discovered in Vietnam in late 2014 and they have been wowing scientists ever since. These guys can grow to be over a foot long, which makes them one of the largest insects ever found. So while I was researching for this video, I had the question, how are stick bugs born? Do they come from eggs? How many eggs would a stick bug have? You know, just regular stick bug questions. As it turns out, I was a little in over my head because apparently female stick bugs will lay over 100 eggs, some species laying as many as 1,000 eggs per gestation. That's wild. That's potentially a lot of stick bugs. In our number 4 spot today we have the Araguayan river dolphin. This is a newly discovered species of Amazon river dolphin that is actually causing quite a bit of debate in the scientific community. These residents of the Amazon River are the largest of all river dolphins, and adults end up acquiring a strange pink coloring which can be more prominent in the males. In 2014, based on nuclear microsatellite and mitochondrial DNA data, as well as noticeable differences in skull morphology, these guys were classified into their own distinct species, but not all scientists are yet convinced that they are separate. For those who do believe that it's its own species, they believe that the split from their closest relative came about 2.08 million years ago. In our number 3 spot today we have the fire-tailed tedi monkey. Back in 2011, scientists were looking for animals in southern Brazil when one scientist noticed an unusual monkey with a bright reddish-orange tail. This of course sparked some interest and led to some more trips to observe these monkeys, which in turn led to the discovery of a new species. This new species is a kind of tedi monkey which are small tree-dwelling primates that have about 30 species throughout South America. These guys live in small family groups that consist of a monogamous pair of adults and usually 2 or 3 of their offspring, and these families often spend most of their time grooming each other. One of my favorite things about these creatures is how they will often sit next to one another on a branch while their tails intertwine endearingly. While it is too early in their discovery to know for sure if these guys are endangered, experts warn that they are not yet out of the woods, and if they aren't endangered, they might be soon because of their limited habitat that is currently facing threats of deforestation. In our number 2 spot today we have the fanged frog. This species of frogs are endemic to northern and western Sulawesi, Indonesia, and they were discovered in late 2014 by scientists from the University of California, Berkeley. These frogs are actually fanged frogs as they have 2 projections on their lower jaw that they use when they get into fights. One really unique thing about this species of frog is in relation to their reproduction process. They have internal fertilization and they give live birth to tadpoles. This is different from other frog species that give live births as they normally produce froglets, which is the cutest little thing I've ever heard. Little froglets. What? It is said that these live tadpoles are likely protected early in life by their frog fathers. I mean, I personally wouldn't risk getting in a fight with a fanged frog, would you? In our number 1 spot today, we have the ancient panda. This is likely the newest discovery on this entire list, but it's a discovery that came about 6 million years too late. By using a set of fossilized teeth that were actually found in the 1970s, researchers recently just uncovered a new species of panda that lived all those millions of years ago, but this panda was quite different from what we know today, and that is because these guys made their home in Bulgaria. The fossilized teeth are shiny and black because they were found in coal deposits, but researchers were still able to date them back to the Mycenaean age, which took place 7.2 to 5.3 million years ago. These pandas would have lived in humid forests and swamp areas, and they are comparable in size to pandas today. These teeth, however, aren't quite as sturdy as those of pandas today, so rather than tough bamboo, it is likely that these guys had a diet of softer plants. This discovery is just one that shows us how little we really know about ancient nature and how much there is to uncover even still today. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have the hero ant. This is a type of ant that was officially classified in 2014. These ants nest in the ground or in rotten wood, and they were found in Madagascar. The name of these ants comes from this wild technique they have when it comes to an intruder who is invading their territory. Of course, these ants feel a duty to protect their home and their colony, so what do they do when someone threatens their safety? Well, they grab a hold of the intruder and throw them and themselves off of the ant equivalent of a cliff. So far it seems like they are the only species that willingly throws themselves off of cliffs, but hey, it earned them the name of a hero, so maybe it was all worth it. Somehow these ants are able to pick themselves up after the fall and get right back to work. In our number 9 spot today we have Salazar's pit viper. This new green pit viper species was discovered in 2019 and finally classified in 2020. It was first found in the Himalayas and was actually one of 5 new reptile species found in the area that year. If you're a Harry Potter lover, this one might be obvious, but the snake was named after the Harry Potter character Salazar Slytherin. The snake features a dark green head and yellowish green dorsal scales throughout the rest of its body. The males and females of this species have different physical characteristics, with the males having yellow, orange, and reddish orange stripes with a rust-colored tail, which is something that is not seen on the females. The snakes are nocturnal and are often found coiled around shrubs at night. Currently, their habitat is under threat due to developments such as road widening, agriculture, and hydroelectric projects, not to mention the current plans to build a 49-kilometer long road that cuts directly through their habitat. In our number 8 spot today we have the Emperor Dumbo octopus. These guys are a new species of Dumbo octopus that was discovered just last year. It was discovered in the Emperor Seamounts in the North Pacific Ocean just off of the coast of Japan. The location of the discovery is where they got their name from, which I thought was important to include because when I first heard their name, I thought it meant that they were huge, which was initially a little concerning. There is actually only one of these species that has ever been found, which was the single specimen that was used to confirm this discovery. Because the specimen was found alive and was the only one we've located, scientists were thankfully careful to use only non-invasive techniques to identify it, which included micro CT scans and 3D imaging. These techniques ensure that the little guy could continue living his life while we can also learn more about it, which truly is the best of both worlds. The one we found was located at a depth of around 3,900 to 4,400 meters in the ocean. In our number 7 spot today we have the deadly sponge. To be perfectly honest, sea sponges have always kind of creeped me out. Like, they're just so different, and it's crazy that they really are alive. But this newly discovered species of sea sponges takes things to a whole new level. These sponges, to something like a shrimp, would probably look like a lovely place to take a little rest stop, but upon closer examination, they are hiding a deadly little secret. While most sea sponges filter water that they flush through their bodies and get nutrients from all of the single-celled organisms that pass through, these species of sea sponges, announced in 2014, have decided that they need a little something more. That's right, these sea sponges are carnivores. These sponges feature these tiny little microscopic hooks on them that act like Velcro for that unsuspecting shrimp. Once snagged by the sponge, after a few hours, the sponge's cells will start to engulf and digest it, and within a few days all that will be left is an empty shell. Definitely one of those circle of life things, but still, it's a little macabre to be perfectly honest. In our number 6 spot today we have the pine pine rockland trapdoor spider. Maybe not terrifying to scientists, but definitely terrifying to me. This spider has a bit of an interesting discovery story. This spider species was actually discovered in 2012, but it wasn't really researched and found out to be a new spider species until last year in 2021. When this spider was originally found, it was located by a staff member at the Miami Zoo who was inspecting reptile research traps. When this staff member was unable to identify this spider based on the existing records of spiders in the area, they knew that they had found something unusual. 2 years later, another one of these spiders was found and looked at by experts in the field. Rebecca Godwin, who is a PhD, who is the assistant professor of biology at Piedmont College in Demorest, Georgia, was able to confirm that this spider was in fact a previously undescribed species. After years of research, she was able to officially identify it as a new species similar to a tarantula. This discovery was extremely exciting as it came from an endangered piece of forest that is located in the middle of a city. Researchers have explained that this is just one of the many reasons why it is so important that we work to preserve these kinds of areas so that we don't lose the things we do know, but also those that we don't yet. In our number 5 spot today, we have the deepwater snapper. This new fish belongs to a small genus of bottom-dwelling fish that are absolutely massive. There were previously 3 different species belonging to the genus, but this one marks the 4th. The newer discovered one is seemingly identical to one of the other already discovered species, with the same bright pink color, the same usual ocean depth of around 200 to 400 meters, and they're also both usually found in the Indian and Pacific Oceans, but despite all of this, the genetics of these fish are actually different. The new species also has a few small physical details that set it apart from the others, such as smaller eyes and a black spot on the tip of its upper tail fin. It is believed that this fish had previously been misidentified as the other similar species, and since these fish are usually caught on the same fishing line, this new distinction is incredibly important for fisheries because each fish species needs to be managed differently. The fish was named in honor of Dr. Brian Bowen, who is a researcher at the University of Hawaii, who has spent over 3 decades of his life dedicated to studying marine fish. In our number 4 spot today, we have the false gecko. This is definitely among the smallest of the creatures on this list, measuring at just 42 to 52 millimeters long. These little guys were found on the southeastern tip of the main island of the Philippines, Luzon. Their scientific name comes from their tendency to hide in hollow areas such as logs. They have inverted Y-shaped markings along their entire tail, as well as golden yellow colored eyes, which apparently are reflective. Previous to the discovery of this new false gecko, there were 9 other known species of false geckos, all of which are endemic to the Philippines. Because of their small size, their tendencies to hide, and their camouflage abilities, these little guys are extremely difficult to find, which is definitely part of the reason they are such a new discovery. One of the researchers on the team of scientists who discovered this new species explained that this new discovery just might create a greater appreciation for the biodiversity in the Philippines and will hopefully prompt a better management of the wilderness areas located there. Researchers are currently worried that this brand new species might be close to extinction due to habitat loss. In our number 3 spot today, we have marsupial frogs. These guys were discovered in 2021 and they were found in a protected part of the Amazon rainforest. It is estimated that there is the highest concentration of undiscovered animals in the Amazon, so it really makes sense that we would find a new species here. These frogs feature a green color and they have a coarse, granular, and patternless dorsal skin. They have turquoise colored eyes and their venter doesn't have any sort of splotches, specks, or dots. I'm not gonna lie, I had to look up what a venter is, but I guess it's just like the belly area of the frog. You know, the more you know. These guys are called marsupial frogs because the females hold eggs in a closed dorsal pouch, which is similar to that of like a kangaroo or other kinds of marsupial animals. In our number 2 spot today, we have the enigma moth. This is a type of moth that was discovered back in 2015 and it is regarded as quite an exciting discovery, to be quite honest. While I personally hate moths, this one even has me feeling alright about it. On Kangaroo Island, which is in South Australia, it was discovered that the island, which has been settled since 1836, was holding an insect species that was entirely unknown to science. When these moths were found, they were realized to have more primitive features, so scientists had a job to figure out just how primitive. Turns out these guys are kinda like a living fossil. Even the most primitive moths we know of have jaws. A sign of a more recent moth is that of a tongue, but this newly discovered moth species has neither a tongue nor a jaw. All in all, this discovery is said to have been one of the most exciting in entomology in the last 40 years. One of the reasons these moths might have been hard to pin down is because their adult lives are lived in one single day. In one day they emerge from their cocoon, mate, reproduce, and then die. Definitely a jam-packed day, that's for sure. In our number 1 spot today we have the bone house wasp. Well, really all you need to know about this one is in its name. These wasps were discovered in southeast China in 2014, and their scientific name was inspired by graveyard bone houses or ossuaries. This is because the females of this species, after they lay eggs, will riddle their home with dead ant corpses. Yeah, not exactly the same sort of nesting I was expecting, but hey, to each their own. Of course, this is thought to potentially make their nest less vulnerable to predators, and the smell of the dead ants might even fully deter them and completely camouflage the nest. All in all, while it is of course a survival tactic, it's also quite a gruesome thought. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the bandy snake. Back in 2018, scientists were returning from a sea snake research mission in Queensland, Australia, when they found a brand new species of snake. Of course, this being Australia, land of things that can kill you, this one was venomous. This new species of bandy snake was a startling discovery because bandy is a burrowing snake, so those who found it were pretty surprised to have found it on a concrete block near the sea. It turns out this discovery almost didn't happen as well, as it was realized that this snake had come to that location after slithering over from a pile of rubble that was waiting to be loaded onto a ship. This snake is said to have been visually and genetically different from the other 5 known species of bandy snakes that live on the continent. And our number 9 spot today we have the reticulated siren. Florida is the land of the weird, and this creature certainly is no exception. Scientists back in 2018 found this new species of legless salamander that looks kinda like a salamander, kinda like a snake with gills, and kinda like a leopard. This species is said to be among the largest found in the United States in the last century, so it is no doubt that this is quite the find. Researchers said that the creature is completely aquatic and has a long eel-like body, 2 forelimbs, no eyelids, gills, and a horny beak and a spotted pattern on its skin. What's funny is that, while unknown to science, this creature was locally known and it was referred to as a leopard eel. Scientists, while they appreciated the name, thought that they should change it to something more formal since this animal is neither leopard nor eel. In our number 8 spot today we have the brittle star. This is a species that was found in 2011, but it took 10 years for it to be researched and fully classified, which happened just last year in 2021. This is a species of brittle star that was found during an expedition on the Banque Durand seamount, which is off of the coast of New Caledonia in the Pacific Ocean. This specific brittle star first caught the attention of experts because of 2 atypical features. One was that it had 8 arms, this was unusual because most have 5, and the other unusual feature is their 8 sets of razor-sharp teeth. It is believed that these teeth, which line every jaw, are used to snare and shred their prey. This creature definitely is quite remarkable and is the product of millions of years of evolution, but it is likely the last survivor of an ancient lineage which dates back to the Jurassic period. In our number 7 spot today we have the zombie frog. This is a type of frog that was first described just last year in 2021. They can be found in French Guiana, and they are nocturnal creatures as well as being ones that primarily live underground. This is exactly what made their discovery so difficult. The frogs thankfully have a unique call sound, which is what allowed researchers to dig through the mud in the middle of the night in order to uncover these elusive creatures. Despite their scary common name, these frogs are not part of the undead. Their name actually comes from what the scientists said they all looked and felt like after digging through the mud all all night trying to find these dang frogs. While these frogs and their populations need much more examination and research, it is currently thought that they might unfortunately be endangered. In our number 6 spot today, we have the sheet weaver spider. Until recently, these little spiders lived their lives deep inside a cave in Indiana, completely unbeknownst to science. These guys were described in 2018, and they are quite small at only about 2 millimeters long. They're like a sort of dusty yellow or tan color, and they are said to have black circles around their eyes. They are best known for their sheet web skills, which are these intricate, flat, tightly woven horizontal webs. The scientific names of these spiders was inspired by Dr. Julian Lewis, who is said to have assisted greatly in the discovery of this new spider species. It is said that this discovery marks the 15th species in the genus and the 5th known to live their lives only in caves. In our number 5 spot today, we have Jonah's mouse lemur. Mouse lemurs are, of course, a group of lemurs who are shy nocturnal primates. These animals are usually found in Madagascar and are the smallest group of known primates in the world, usually growing to around the size of a human fist. Back in 2020, scientists were able to discover a new kind of mouse lemur, which is now being called Jonah's mouse lemur. They were able to distinguish this new species from the others by using genomic data and mitochondrial DNA, as well as just its general appearance. These new ones are slightly bigger than average, and they have a reddish-brown body with white stripes on their nose, thick fur, and small little ears. So far, we have only found Jonah's mouse lemurs in a small lowland rainforest in northeast Madagascar. Unfortunately, with their discovery comes the realization that they are also endangered, which is actually the case for all lemurs, mouse or otherwise. The main threats to their life come from the deforestation currently happening within Madagascar and their natural habitats. In our number 4 spot today, we have the forest bumblebee. These little guys were found by researchers from Sweden in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. The reason they hadn't been previously discovered is because they look identical to another species of bumblebee that had already been discovered, but through genome sequences, we were able to finally realize that there is a distinguishable difference. This discovery has led researchers to believe that there may be even more undiscovered species of bumblebees than previously thought, as well as the fact that the warming of colder regions might be prompting the birth of new species. This is super cool because, of course, evolution is a thing that takes a lot of time, but it truly is happening all around us all of the time. Because this discovery came just last year, more research will soon be conducted to see just how many species of bumblebees we've been misidentifying. Maybe we're really close to learning about even more new ones. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Central African slender-snouted crocodile. This is a species that was discovered quite a while ago, but it wasn't until just a few years ago that it was realized to be its own species. After 2 main studies into this species, one in 2014 and one in 2018, this medium-sized freshwater species was classified to be the Central African slender-snouted crocodile. These guys can be found from Cameroon to Tanzania, but their discovery came with some bad news. Crocodile expert Matthew Shirley said, quote, "Recognizing the slender-snouted crocodile as actually comprised of 2 different species is cause for great conservation concern." He went on to say, quote, "We estimate only 10% of slender-snouted crocodiles occur in West Africa, effectively diminishing its population by 90%. This makes the West African slender-snouted crocodile one of the most critically endangered crocodile species in the world." While crocodiles are a bit of a scary creature themselves, nothing compares to the news of a newly discovered species being found and at the same time being known to be endangered. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Dragon of Death. Okay, so this discovery is a little different from the others on this list because unfortunately this creature is long extinct, but that doesn't mean its discovery isn't absolutely fascinating. This massive prehistoric creature has been dubbed the Dragon of Death as it once hunted prey from the sky around 86 million years ago. With its wings fully extended, this creature is said to have measured a massive 9 meters or 30 feet from one wingtip to the other. If that wasn't enough, it is also said that this species is as tall as a giraffe, so in just size alone, this creature is absolutely terrifying. While scientists believe that this creature spent most of its time on the ground, they also believe belief that it may have been one of the first predators to use its wings to hunt prey, as it lived and flew in a time before the evolution of birds. In our number 1 spot today, we have new nematodes. Back in September of 2019, a wholesale tarantula breeder, which for a second, let's just talk about how that sounds like the worst job in the history of jobs. Anyway, this guy contacted a parasitologist named Adler Dillman because there was a mysterious infection that was harming some of his tarantulas and he needed help figuring out what it was. The specimens who were sent for testing were found to have an odd white mass around their mouth area. This led to Adler recognizing these as nematodes. It is said that prior to this, scientists in Europe did identify the first nematodes found on tarantulas, but the research only examined the worms themselves and not the worms as found on the spiders. Adler was able to see this gap in the research and fill it in with some frightening information. Once infected by these worms, tarantulas will begin to exhibit strange behaviors. They will do things like walking around on their tiptoes, they won't eat, and the appendages that control their fangs will stop working. Tarantulas apparently don't need to eat a lot, so it may take a while, but this will eventually prove to be fatal, and the spider will starve to death as a result of these newly discovered worms. While we understand the effects, at this point in time, what's left to understand is how these parasites are actually able to change the tarantula's behavior. Also, the scientific name of these guys is named after Jeff Daniels because of the fact that his character in the 1990 film Arachnophobia saves a town from a deadly infestation of spiders. So, who said that scientists don't have a sense of humor?
In our number 10 spot, we have the elephant bird. The elephant bird became extinct approximately 1000 to 1200 CE, and it is most likely due to human activity due to hunting, climate and vegetation change, and habitat loss due to deforestation. These birds are from the ratite family, Epornithidae, and they were enormous flightless birds. They used to live in Madagascar. They stood about 9.8 feet tall and weighed approximately 1,600 pounds. Their closest living relative is the kiwi bird. It is said that they most likely ate low-hanging fruit, even though they look like they could gobble you up in one go. I would have personally thought them to be carnivores, but thankfully not. I would be fine if scientists brought them back. Any herbivore, is fine, but if they pulled a Jurassic Park on us and brought back the carnivores, then I would not be okay. In our number 9 spot, we have the Pyrenean ibex. The Pyrenean ibex was basically a wild goat. When people say that they love goats, I'm always a little perplexed. Why? Just why? Watch my dad will for sure watch this episode and will say something like, "Hey, I love goats," and yes, he does indeed. I don't know why. He's always sending me goat videos when he goes to his friend's farm. I shall never understand. Anyways, this wild goat was 5 feet long and apparently 30 inches tall. It was found in southwestern Europe, and the species died out in 2003, which is really not that long ago. I was 13. Shoot, I need to stop giving away my age. I mean, I was just born. Anyways, the last goat was born and died 7 minutes after its birth due to a lung defect. Hunting, inbreeding, and other factors basically caused this goat's extinction over time. Honestly, it's a bit of a shame that this goat no longer exists because it looks rather majestic, much more classier than regular goats. In our number 8 spot, we have the Chinese river dolphin. It breaks my heart to think that a species of the dolphin might be extinct, but sadly it is. The Chinese river dolphin, known as the baji, sadly went extinct in 2002. It primarily lived in freshwater rivers, primarily in the Yangtze River. The main reason for its extinction is due to the impact of humans. It was directly targeted by meat lovers, but also due to an increasing amount of construction projects on the river. The dolphin, who relies primarily on its sonar capabilities, found it hard to navigate for food because of the construction noise. Pollution in the waters also didn't help either, as well as overfishing. The males were about 7.5 feet long, while the females could be about 8.2 feet. I have a soft spot for dolphins, so honestly I really hope scientists scientists are able to bring this one back. In our number 7 spot, we have the dodo bird. The dodo bird is a bird that I would probably be terrified of if I was in a room alone with it, as it's just kinda scary looking. I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of birds in general, so maybe my biases. The dodo bird lived on the island of Mauritius. The bird was about 3.3 feet tall when alive. They went extinct in the 17th century, so quite a long time ago now. What did they eat? Well, their diet primarily consisted of eating from a specific tree that was, called the dodo tree, but the scientific name for the tree is called tambalacoke tree. They also ate nuts, fruits, roots, and small insects. So really, I would have nothing to be afraid of. I bet it would totally mess me up though, cause they were, big birds. My scrawny self would just hide. In our number 6 spot, we have the Tasmanian tiger. The Tasmanian tiger, despite its name, isn't actually a tiger, but was named this due to its tiger-like characteristics. The tiger only recently went extinct in the 20th century in 1936. The species slowly began to decrease about 2,000 years ago due to pressure from indigenous human settlers. They lived primarily in Australia and New Guinea. They were typically 39 inches to 51 inches long and 24 inches high. They have a close living relative, and that's the Tasmanian devil and the numbat. Not gonna lie, I had no idea the Tasmanian devil was a real animal. I totally thought it was just a lovable cartoon character, so I'm shook. Anyone else? Apparently there is hope for the Tasmanian tiger, as with recovering a little DNA, it may be possible to de-extinct the species. I hope scientists are able to. In our number 5 spot, we have the woolly mammoth. If the woolly mammoth was brought back to life and found just wandering around the world, I don't know how I would feel. Not gonna lie. I mean, first thought is to be terrified, but maybe that's dramatic because it's not like it would try to eat me because they are herbivores. Hashtag drama queen. Apparently the woolly mammoth would be about 10 feet to 12 feet high with a weight of up to 6 tons. They are the relative of African elephants, and they went extinct about 4,000 years ago in East Asia. Fun fact about the woolly mammoth, the rings on the tusk tells you how old it is, just like the rings on a tree do. Apparently there is a line for every year. In our number 4 spot, we have the saber-toothed tiger. Okay, if scientists brought back this species, this would be insane. But do we really need another predatory species that want humans to die? We already have to deal with, lions, tigers, and the reptiles in our government, so I think I speak for all of us when I say this isn't necessary. But would be cool to witness. The saber-toothed tiger has been a wonder to many for so long. They are famously known for their long, curved canine teeth. It could weigh anywhere between 485 pounds to 961 pounds. It was approximately 39 inches tall. Its closest relative is the tiger, of course. They originated in North and South America about 10,000 years ago, so it would be extraordinary if scientists found a way to bring them out of extinction. In our number 3 spot, we have the glyptodont. The glyptodont is a larger subfamily of the armadillo. They were around from approximately 34 million years ago in South America, and when the continents became connected, they spread to North America. They were about 12 feet long and 1.5 feet high. They had fluted teeth, and they were covered in a thick, bony carapace. They went extinct approximately 7,000 to 8,000 years ago. It's so interesting how much bigger animals were thousands of years ago, and now all of these big animals have much smaller subfamilies that are alive today. I mean, obviously that's better for us humans, as the less threats we have physically, the better, but still interesting to note. In our number 2 spot, we have the quagga. Okay, so you're probably thinking, Melissa, is this not just a zebra? Yeah, it is a species of zebra, but it's still different and it's extinct, and scientists are thinking of bringing it back. The quagga went extinct in the 19th century, and one of the last pictures that we have of the quagga alive is from 1870 in a London zoo. It's a subspecies of zebra from South Africa. It's about about 8 feet 5 inches long and 4 feet 5 inches tall. It has a sandy brown coat with a white tail and stripes from the top to the middle part of its body. They were herbivores and would typically live 20 to 40 years. They look, pretty majestic to me. I hope this is a species that scientists are able to bring back. In our number 1 spot, we have the ground sloth. The ground sloth is from South Africa and went extinct approximately 11,000 years ago, and some of the species of ground sloths have been extinct longer. The Megatherium, for example, has been extinct for 12,000 years, and this one in particular looks more like a bear than a sloth. It was massive and could be up to 20 feet tall, weighing about 6,600 pounds. Imagine these sloths were just roaming the world today. There are already enough scary bears in the world. I feel like, we're good without this one. But still, this would be an unbelievable breakthrough if we could bring back these creatures. Although I am sure that they wouldn't be as friendly as Sid from Ice Age. That short, cute little guy wouldn't hurt a fly. His lisp is literally the cutest thing in the world. But anyways, would be cool if they came back.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have spiders. The Chernobyl exclusion zone is a place where, because of the strange nature of the environment and the radioactive material, things inside the zone are quite different than the surrounding areas, and this includes some really interesting animal mutations. I've talked about my hatred for spiders a lot on this channel, but to be honest, they keep doing kinda cool things, so I have to keep talking about them. Well, maybe this one is less cool and more scary, but still, they deserved their spot. Spiders that are residing within the exclusion zone are of course radioactive, but it's not only the spiders that are now dangerous to touch, but it's also their webs. Spiders in Chernobyl are likely making radioactive webs, which is the stuff straight out of a comic book. These radioactive webs are also being woven in much different ways than they once were, which would suggest some sort of genetic mutation at play. Not only are the spiders now dangerous for non-radioactive animals to touch, but walking through their web is equally as dangerous to those who aren't thriving in the radiation. So not only do you have to watch out for regular old radioactive material, but now also the never-ending construction of radioactive webs. Great! In our number 9 spot today, we have the two-headed calf. Back in 2015, on a family farm in Florida, as a new little calf was born, those around her were in for quite a surprise. The calf, which was named Annabelle, was born with a mutation that has left her with 2 heads, 4 eyes, 2 mouths, 2 noses, and 2 ears. She was unfortunately too weak to stand up, which left her unable to suckle from her mother, but thankfully the family who owned the farm where she was born was devoted to doing all that they could for her. This meant that they would visit her regularly to feed her from a bottle. Unfortunately, however, there was little anyone, including veterinarians, could do to help this sweet little calf. The longest a two-headed calf has ever been recorded as living was just a short 40 days. It truly is quite a shocking mutation, and hopefully in the future scientists might be able to better figure out how to help so this doesn't happen, or potentially be able to extend the lifespan of calves born this way. In our number 8 spot today, we have barn swallows. After the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, it became clear that the effects weren't just seen in the ground, but also in the sky. The barn swallows in Chernobyl are one animal who have seen a change in their physical appearance that has lasted all the years since the nuclear meltdown. It is unclear why these birds have been affected greater than their land animal counterparts, or if these changes will ever reverse to their previous state, but here's what we are currently dealing with. The swallows appeared to have severely deformed beaks, disproportionate feathers, some had partial albinism, and they were seen to have much smaller brains. Of course, some of these issues are much worse than others, and I'm sure these changes have significantly affected their ways of life, but of course they continue to adapt as time goes on. It is sad that this human-made disaster has affected them in such a negative way, but the fact that they are still around really shows their adaptability and resilience. In our number 7 spot today, we have Donald the Duck. Alright, people are gonna have to get a little more creative with their baby animal names, because for this one we are talking about a duck named Donald. I mean, cute, but not very original for this super unique creature. Donald was born, or hatched I should say, by a family in Louisiana in 2014. Apparently when born, Donald was perfectly healthy with the exception of having 2 extra legs. This little dude was a lot luckier than some of the other animals on this list today, and it is said to have even been able to survive into adulthood, which is a nice change from some of the others we've discussed. Donald was treated by veterinarians at Louisiana State University who were said to have tried to bandage and brace one of his good legs in order to help him walk, but unfortunately this didn't end up working out too well. Sadly, although Donald lived a lot longer than some of these other creatures, his genetic mutation still didn't put him in the best position, and he passed away shortly after this treatment. In our number 6 spot today we have the Chernobyl cows. This is another animal mutation that comes from the radioactive environment seen within the Chernobyl exclusion zone. The area around Chernobyl was known for its agriculture before the disaster, so of course that means that there were definitely a lot of cows that could be found. Different from cats and dogs in the area, since farm animals are not only expensive but also can be used as a source of income, many people took their farm animals with them as they were evacuating, but many of these animals had already been exposed to the radiation in some capacity, and while it didn't affect them right away, the newer generations saw much more of the effects. In 1989, many farmers began reporting birth defects in their animals, some being much more severe than others. As time went on, the cows became less mutated, but that doesn't mean that the effects went away. As the cows continued to graze on feed that was contaminated, the effects became more internal. This has led to completely normal looking cows near the exclusion zone beginning to produce milk that is toxic and not fit for consumption. This is just such another clear example of how even though the visible effects may have worn off, there are still lasting effects that we probably hadn't even previously considered. In our number 5 spot today we have Baby Shark. Sorry for getting that song stuck in your head, all I gotta do is say it. So apparently shark fetuses with 2 heads are becoming more common around the world. Who would have thought? According to experts, the mutation that leads to this trait is known as axial bifurcation, and it's seen not just in sharks but other animals as well, including humans. The question though is why it is starting to happen more and more often. Sadly, this mutation has quite a negative impact on the sharks, as it is unlikely that the sharks with this mutation will even live to see their own birth. For those who do survive until birth, it is highly unlikely that they will survive long in the wild. Right now, scientists are working hard to figure out what is causing this mutation specifically in sharks. The leading theories include overfishing, which is leading to a smaller gene pool and thus a higher susceptibility to genetic mutations, or even potentially things like metabolic disorders, pollution, or viral infections. In our number 4 spot today we have Medusa. Medusa is a 2-headed snake who apparently comes with a steep price of $50,000. According to her owner, he was willing to pay that kind of price because he wanted her since the day she was born. The guy's really passionate about this snake, and the reason why, according to him, is that, quote, the snake is perfect. Some other 2-headed snakes are beautiful, but they have a kink where their heads become one. Medusa doesn't. It's as if she was meant to have 2 heads. I mean, it's a pretty nice thing to say about your snake. Medusa and her 2 heads is a result of identical twins. These twins split from 1 embryo to become 2, but in Medusa's case, these twin embryos fused after splitting, which resulted in her very pricey but very unique appearance. In our number 3 spot today we have Billy the goat. Just so we're clear, baby goats are called kids. I feel like that's important to clear up before we really dive into this one, and that is because on a farm in northeastern Croatia, one little baby goat or kid was born with some sort of a mutation that left him with 8 legs. This was obviously shocking, as of course it was expected to have just 4, but in addition to having twice the amount of legs, this little guy also had both male and female reproductive organs. These unique traits are said to have been a result of this goat sort of absorbing the remnants of an underdeveloped twin sibling. This is actually a thing not just seen in goats, but in other animal species as well. Unfortunately though, this can, and in this case did, prove to be fatal. This little guy, who was nicknamed Billy the Squid, likely didn't survive for longer than a week. In our number 2 spot today we have Froggy. Okay, we've got some 2-headed animals on this list, but this one is taking the record because for this point we have a 3-headed frog. Found in the waters of a seaside resort in Somerset, England, this unique creature named Froggy is said to have escaped captivity. Clearly he's using all 3 of his heads, clever little guy. Not only does Froggy have 3 heads, but he also has 6 legs, and the culprit behind this unusual scenario is said to be either just a birth defect or potentially a result of water pollution. Froggy was truly baffling to scientists, with one Tim Halliday even saying, quote, "I've never heard of a frog like this before. People have been reporting mutant frogs for 200 years, but to find one with 3 heads and 6 legs is very rare. Seems as though Froggy really is 1 in a million. In our number 1 spot today, we have tuskless elephants. So you know how there are those terrible people who hunt huge, gorgeous animals for no reason at all other than to steal their ivory tusks in order to make a profit? Well, those people may have just caused a genetic mutation in elephants that might just end up kind of protecting these extraordinary creatures. More than 20,000 African elephants are killed every year just for their tusks alone, leaving their bodies behind. Decades and decades of illegal poaching of these animals and the constant killing of tusked animals means that from an evolutionary standpoint, not having tusks is certainly more advantageous. Elephants without tusks is a hereditary trait that is caused by 2-tooth genes. Tuskless elephants are more likely to survive because they aren't being hunted as often, which means that this trait is being passed down more often. In fact, it is thought that the number of female African savanna elephants without tusks rose from 15% to 51%. I also only mentioned females because apparently in males, the tuskless gene is lethal. Scientists predict that this change is so significant, even as poaching eases, this is likely a change that will still be seen for generations, which could have an absolutely devastating impact on the future of elephants.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Steller sea cow. Stellar indeed. Okay, the Steller sea cow was named after George Wilhelm Steller, who discovered this massive creature in 1741 during the Vitus Bering's Great Northern Expedition. They found her right after the crew became shipwrecked. What a lovely surprise to an otherwise horrible situation. They were around over 2.6 million years ago, and they were no match for humans. They only swam about a meter deep, and once humans came into the picture with, hunting and aggression and everything, they were quite easy to hunt. George Steller commented that the animals had an uncommon love for their families, which in turn made it even easier for us to hunt them. Considering the 1-year gestation period, the species just couldn't reproduce fast enough to keep up with our hunting. But this list, we have a little hope now, don't we? Scientists were able to sequence the genome, which could mean we could see the creature again one day. Hopefully. The answer may lie right now in the DNA of a dugong. Dugongs are the cow of the sea. You know what, they're great. Let's have all the cows of all seas back immediately. Number 9, passenger pigeons. The passenger pigeon once ruled the skies over Canada as recently as the 19th century. Billions of these bright orange birds would just paint the skies. They would fly in flocks so large it would block out the sun for a short amount of time. Isn't that beautiful? It's like some Lion King stuff right there. But only a few decades passed and passenger pigeons are now no more. So what happened? Well, the very last passenger pigeon, her name was Martha. She passed away in the Cincinnati Zoo back in 1914, so we took a look at her DNA to see if Martha held any secrets to her extinction. They discovered Martha had a low genetic diversity for such a growing population. Natural selection and hunting obviously just eliminated the coolest looking bird out there by far. A little different than the pigeons we have today, that's for sure. The last one died in 1914, but in 2019, paleontologists found remains of the pigeon protected in indigenous lands in Canada, up in Northwest Territories. They've blended passenger pigeon DNA with Archaeopteryx dinosaur DNA. Yeah, we're bringing back pigeons with a hint o' dinosaur. What could go wrong? Number 8, the woolly mammoth. It was announced only months ago that a team of scientists and entrepreneurs over at a company called Colossal are planning to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. That's just the thing we need right now in this world. Out of all the problems, we're like, you know what could solve it? The woolly mammoth, for sure. That'll bring jobs back. The Siberian tundra thousands of years ago was once full of these woolly mammoths, but climate change began to slow them down just a little bit. And humans also needed food, so that surely didn't help. These guys provided warmth and, well, look at them, obviously a lot of food. Genetics company Colossal raised over $15 million to try and bring this thing back to life. Honestly, I hope it works, but then, now what? All these things are great scientifically, but it's like, and then what? Number 7, the dodo bird. Speaking of the devil, we're definitely gonna eat these guys. Dodo birds were once big and beautiful. These flightless ground nesting birds once filled the island of Mauritius, located in the Indian Ocean. They had massive talons, they were big, gray, and blue, and they didn't have any natural predator, which is pretty sweet. They didn't have one until we came along. Around 1507, the island was discovered by Portuguese sailors and, well, the rest is history. They were the easiest bird to hunt, hence the phrase dead as a dodo. They weren't just loved by sailors either. We're not just 100% here to blame, Monkeys, rats, pigs, any animal that made its way to the island easily had their eggs for lunch. So yeah, it didn't take a long time for the dodo bird population to be completely wiped out. The last dodo was hunted in 1681, but can we bring back the dodo bird? Are we doing it? I think we're gonna do it. Scientists found an extremely well-preserved dodo skeleton back in 2007, so we may have a chance at picking some DNA apart here. A research facility near Melbourne, Australia is currently trying to use pigeon genes to bring this bird back to life. I mean, I'm all for the idea of bringing back an animal. Scientifically, that's a feat in itself, but do we really think nobody's gonna make dodo chicken wings? I'm just saying. That's just a problem waiting to happen. Number 6, Pyrenean ibex. The last Pyrenean ibex was a female named Celia. A falling tree sadly killed her in 2000. She was a subspecies of the Spanish ibex, and the Pyrenean ibex were native to the Pyrenees Mountains on the border of Spain and France, as her name hints towards. Back in the medieval ages though, their population was reduced drastically to an endangered level. So it wasn't just recently, it was way back, because of, again, hi, we got hungry. They were all over the place, and knights and swords and bows and armies to feed. They were hunted down, sadly. Disease spread by humans also played an important role in their demise during this time. The Pyrenean ibex was successfully cloned and brought back from extinction for 7 minutes. So we actually did this one. DNA from the last living lady was implanted in the womb of a domestic goat. Lung complications are why the clone didn't last, but listen to what I just said. They made a clone. 7 minutes is a start. I think I could handle a clone of myself for 7 minutes, and then after that I'm tapping out. Number 5, Tasmanian tiger. Once native to Australia, the Tasmanian tiger, also known as the thylacine, it was a massive carnivorous marsupial that went extinct around the 1930s. Major factors here, as you guessed, climate change, hunting, and its genetic diversity wasn't all too great. It was sad on one hand because these beautiful creatures disappeared so recently, but it's recent enough that we have a shot at bringing them back. So we're like, but maybe. Yeah, imagine looking outside and seeing this thing on your front yard. Are we ready for this? Specimens still remain preserved in jars. Thank God for those jars. About time we open those things up, right? All those jar guys are like, finally, pull this one out. Already we have some of the Tasmanian tiger genes present after scientists inserted them into a mouse fetus. The Australian Museum has been working hard to bring this beast back to life. They're only still lacking the DNA to fully recreate it. So if you have any jars of Tasmanian tiger parts, help us out, hit those thumbs. Number 4, the great auk. Once thriving in colonies off North Atlantic coasts, the great auk would grow to 30 inches long, and its tiny wings would be only used to swim. Had little tiny, little wings. The wings were much smaller. They were about 13 centimeters long, little flappy arms. No wonder they couldn't fly. Look at these things, oh my God. They were cute, but obviously they were quite defenseless. Around the 1500s, European fishermen discovered this perfect area for hunting, and it just happened to be where most of these great auks were hanging out. Newfoundland looked like the iceberg from Club Penguin, and then we just rolled in and we're like, ho, we are so hungry. It was packed, so they rapidly declined, and by 1950, the last 2 known specimens were hunted by a single fisherman on Eldey Island, just off the coast of Iceland. Scientists plan on using genetic information extracted from their fossils or preserved organs. Remember those jars of organs always coming in handy. They plan on editing their DNA in the closest living species, which is now the razor-billed auk. The organization Revive and Restore is behind the wheel on this one, and I'm hoping they pull through. Number 3, the moa. This New Zealand bird went extinct about 600 years ago. Moa were these flightless birds, massive might I add, and archaeologists first discovered its fossil in a cave. Its flesh and everything was still attached, that's the gross part. These ancient birds would reach about 5 feet tall, and when you think of dinosaurs, you probably think that's quite petite in comparison. These birds stopped flying right after the dinosaurs went extinct. Interesting timing. According to biologist Matthew Phillips from the Australian National University in Canberra, these birds safely roamed the land after they didn't need to make these daring dino escapes in the sky. They walked around, got fat, and would hang out in caves. Honestly, pretty ideal. Phillips says this is an advantage when it comes to birds and evolution because wings, be it big or small, kill energy. So it might seem a little depressing to watch a creature lose the ability to fly, but it's because they're eating good, they're comfortable now. Scientists have now found more moa DNA from ancient eggshells, so it's possible that we may see these fatties soar the skies once again. Number 2, Megatherium. AKA giant ground sloths. That's a bit of a nicer name. Yeah, sloths. Let's bring those back. Wait, they're already here. I'm confused, Taylor. Sloths used to be a lot bigger than we think. We often look at them now for being so slow and silly. The movie Ice Age or Zootopia, they sure didn't help their case. Now, of course, the giant ground sloth is closely related to our modern 3-toed sloth, but luckily for us, today's sloths aren't that big. They're not the same size as an elephant, which is pretty sweet. That would be a horror film. If a giant elephant-sized sloth started to climb that tree, slowly, might I add, I'd be sick. We may be able to bring this one back, although they died off 8,000 years ago. DNA samples were extracted from their hair remains, so the next step now is to develop a fetus in an artificial womb. That's the hard part. That's where science and technology might just do the rest. But as of right now, we've got a pile of hair. We're like, maybe. And finally, number 1, the gastric brooding frog. I'm a big fan of frogs and toads, all that stuff. Except for when they hatch eggs out of their back. That's arguably the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. We'll maybe show you after, maybe, I don't know. These gastric brooding frogs would swallow their eggs and then hatch them out of their mouth. So if you watch them give birth in reverse, it would be pretty confusing. That would be a horror film. They went extinct back in 1983, but scientists have figured out how to implant these dead cells into a fresh egg from an entirely different frog species. Let's just hope these new ones aren't born out of your back.